All right, here we are, back again. Better than we were. It really, is it possible? Okay, you saw our huge list. You can see on my desk here the 2 stacks of bills that we have. We're going to go through, just in order of what it is. We're going to, if it's still in the work group, we'll mark it that way, like I think the first one's in the work group, right?
Yes.
Yes? First 2? Okay. So that's that. When is that work group meeting?
Well, it was canceled this morning, so I don't have a new time yet. We're working on it.
TBD right now.
Okay. All right, 247.
I don't have a list.
Hold on a second.
Right there.
Kim, where are they?
They're right here.
Kim's got them.
All right. I forget the most important thing. That's okay. I'll do the budget thing first.
Oh, sure. All right, before we actually get to 247, Kim has a handout for us.
I do? Yeah. Did you do that?
Little detail I forgot in the budget.
Details.
It happens. I'm not infallible. I know. Yeah.
Okay. You're not infallible, but we believe everything you say. So I guess you aren't infallible.
That's right.
There you go. 20 million more for Western Maryland on top of what we did this morning?
Yeah, let's focus in a minute. Erica. Oh, sorry.
Up front, Kim.
That's okay, man. What?
Oh, Erica's.
Thank you. Okay, so what we just distributed to you is, was part of the fence package that you all looked at and adopted this morning. For this particular item, it's just some rewording within the middle of it. It's the same dollar figure, same general purpose. We just had to change some of the wording to make it reflect what Senate Bill 474 and House Bill 383 are doing in terms of who would receive the money. It inadvertently had the money going to the Tri-County Council, which is not how the bill is structured.
Details.
Senator.
I was wondering how the senator from Western Maryland felt about this. Move to adopt, sir. With Eric.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we can get to the real exciting stuff. Yeah, for you. 247. What do we got?
Send an email to budget.
Are we ready for this?
Yes, I just needed to send an email to budget to let them know that's good to go.
247.
All right, Senate Bill 247, you all should have a reprint on your desk. It should look familiar. This is the one that, in particular, when it last left you guys, this had to do with creating a plain language description of some of the processes that the SDAT follows. On page 3 of the reprint is where the committee left off. You all had discussed this was an amendment offered by Senator King. You all had discussed in paragraph C to include the 10-day notification to both the county and the municipal corporation, so this reflects that and. And then after the voting, I received communication from the city of Gaithersburg that they would now like the committee to evaluate a 90-day window for the localities to decide whether or not to appeal a decision that lowered the assessment on business property. Initially, it was 150 days that they requested.
Who requested 150?
Well, it came through Senator King with
Gaithersburg.
Yep,
And but the bill said what's the current practice?
45 days. it's generally a 45-day window to decide whether to appeal. This, in a particular circumstance, would give localities 2 times as long to decide to appeal.
What is the amount now after, here the 10 days is, what is that currently?
I don't think the law, I mean, I think the law was silent in terms of how long SDAT had. The testimony that you heard was that SDAT would provide a list mostly to just the counties and not the municipalities. And so it could take months before a municipality would even be notified of changes in assessment.
Thank you.
So how do we feel about it? The gist of this is, other than the plain language, is to move from 45 days to 90 days and open it up to the localities, the municipalities. Is that the gist of the whole thing?
Yes.
Anything else? Erica?
No, I mean, I guess just a reminder, you all talked about this last time, but just a reminder, the other thing it does is just, in terms of what the appeal authority can consider, there is a provision here that is struck because that would have been unconstitutional.
Right, I remember that. Okay. Senator McRae?
Mr. Chair, did you ever figure out the place where we were landing? I think this is the bill where the reassess piece of it for lower value. Did you figure out what we were doing with that?
No.
Okay.
I didn't think this was it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, so that's, this is where the Senate bill and the House bill don't match, and you do have both in front of you, even though they're marked as a cross file. So the Senate bill does, in terms of reassessing a property outside of the 3-year cycle, it reduces from $100,000 to $50,000 in terms of the value of improvements made to the property. So the effect of that, of course, being that more properties would be subject to
Right,
assessment outside of the 3-year cycle.
right. And I was uncomfortable with that, and I continue to be. Senator McRae? Do you agree with that, or?
I did, but you said you was gonna take care of it.
Yeah, yes. I did, yes.
Okay.
I just found this explanation of why would they want to switch from the 45 days on that to the, what was it? 90 days. It said the city does not receive notification from SDAT within 45 days typically. The county gets the notice first. We do not see the property valuations like the counties do, and we discover discrepancies in value late and almost accidentally. So that's why they want it to be taken up to the 90 days so they have more time to get their job done.
All right. Okay. So I'm inclined to reverse the action, which is on page 2, line 21.
So keep that at current law?
Yeah. Everyone understand that?
Leave it at 100.
Leave it as 100. Yep. Okay. All right, so as amended, that the amendment, all the amendments as displayed and including changing that back to 100. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Senator King, you seem to like this bill. You seem to like this bill.
I move favorable on it because it's
All right.
Floor leader.
You're the floor leader now.
thanks.
That's how it works. Although I want folks to talk up. I don't want them to be. 251.
Senate Bill 251 is the income tax subtraction modifications for centurions, people over 100 years old. This one will give anybody who's over 100 years old a $50,000 subtraction modification.
Over what age?
100.
I'm close.
850, I think, right? 850 people? Something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that. Well, that was in 2018. Some of them might not be here now.
But some of the young folks have gotten.
Might be higher now, that's right. Actually, of the people who are over 100, only 410 of them actually had a need to file a return. So only about half the people over 100 will benefit from this.
So we need to hear from Senator Young. It's a growing population. Tell him what you just said.
In the United States, the fastest growing population percentage-wise is 100 and over.
Is that right?
Yep.
That's impressive. Senator Alfred?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I personally love this bill, and I just helped celebrate a constituent of mine who turned 100 last week, and she actually brought up taxes, and so I think this is a great bill. My only question is, how will this relate to any other
Yep, I think it's.
tax relief we do? Because if it's just up to 50, I think there's some places here we just need to look where they overlay.
Well, I mean, what we're more considering now, if you're considering the retirement income, we're considering credits as opposed to subtraction modifications, which is a completely different animal.
Right.
I mean, how does this apply, how does this fit with something like Hometown Heroes?
If they were a hometown hero, they would get both. Looking at Philip. Because this is just a flat 50, any of your 50.
Right, this is based on age. I mean, the hometown hero pension subtraction is really an early entry from age 55 to 65. So once you turn 65, it's the typical pension subtraction of the maximum social security amount.
The 34,000?
In 2021, yeah, it changes every year based on the maximum social security.
What are you suggesting, Senator?
I just always try to think about how this is gonna work for our constituents, in particular constituents who are over 100. And if it's clear, I mean, maybe just, I'd like to move the bill. I would just wanna, when we come at the end of session with multiple retiree relief bills hopefully passed, how we're communicating that relief for this population, I think is gonna be important. So I don't know if I have a suggestion, we need to understand how they all overlap.
So, if we do pass a credit, they'd be eligible for both. There's no reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, provided they meet the criteria for whatever tax
Right.
provision.
Right.
Or yeah, depending on the income.
Yeah, I mean, if the credit's not refundable, and this wipes out some of your tax liability, then you wouldn't get the advantage of the credit because you wouldn't owe any taxes.
You're still ahead. Senator Young?
I would just suggest if for over 100, give them 100. Don't require them to pay taxes at all, and then you don't have to worry about overlap.
I thought about that.
I mean, I support that at an earlier age, but for 100, certainly.
What age would that be, Senator?
Way younger than I am.
I think 70 is a good call.
There are actually studies that show that you don't lose money doing that. But I'm not going to get into all that. This bill, I'd say give them 100%.
It's an interesting thought. So I presume it would just pretty much, this is Phillips, right?
This is my bill.
It wouldn't be
What do you
very
think?
much.
You think it will just double it?
To go up to 100,000 or to just eliminate all? 100% of, make a subtraction modification of 100% of your income, or you could double it up to $100,000 worth of income.
How about a 100% up to $100,000?
100 for 100 for 100. You didn't understand.
Everybody,
You just go to
everybody-
$100,000. That would, I think that would wipe out a lot of the income tax liability on this population.
It's not a lot of money. It's not that many people, first off.
Well, if we don't do that, if we don't actually pass it, we won't get a new fiscal notice, right?
Correct.
Will we have that before the floor?
I can ask. I know our income tax fiscal note writers are
Busy.
busy right now.
I'm aware, yes. I think that's probably the right thing. Go to 100?
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Yep.
You don't wanna lower the age, huh? Just saying.
I would see if we can get a fiscal note. Yeah,
Is it? Okay, so we'll hold it till the end of the week in
Yeah.
hopes of a fiscal note?
correct. Who wants to be on the bill? Anybody doesn't want to be on the bill? It's like everybody's going to be on the bill. Senator Zucker?
So if you have, it's a great bill, but if you have two people, one is 100 and one is 99, and would they have to, if they filed jointly their whole life, do they now have to file single?
No.
Okay.
The comptroller has worked these out. They would get, yes.
If we only had someone from here, in his office that was here, it would
Okay. Senator Young, since you're, feel so close to this issue, you'll take it to the floor.
Exactly.
All right. So we did vote that, right? Or did we take vote? Okay, everybody wants to be on it. Favorable with amendments. All those in favor? Opposed? Got it.
But we're gonna hold it for a fiscal note?
We're going to hope that we get it by the end of the week. We don't have to put it on the floor immediately. Okay. 274.
Okay.
This guy Hayes is doing a lot of work.
Senate Bill 274, you do have a reprint on your desk for this one as well. This bill does three things. First of all, when it comes to personal property that's located in a residence, current law has an exemption that if the value of that property is $10,000, the original cost of that value is $10,000 or less, it is exempt from personal property tax. This bill would increase that to $20,000 of value to be exempt. Secondly, within the property tax code, there's kind of a general exemption for like de minimis value of things. And there, that value is $2,500, and this bill also increases that to $20,000. And then in both of those instances, the bill would prohibit SDAT from collecting information from the individual and requiring the submission of the personal property tax return.
Okay, that's the most interesting part, I think, about this. Right? No more, so is it, no more filing that, what about the business fee?
If they're incorporated, the bill could certainly be made to be clarified. I mean, you have to pay the $300 just to submit your annual report. So this would be, exempting from that. But the other fees, if you are a business, you do have other fees that you have to file for, but.
So this gets rid of the $300 for who?
The individual.
Say it again, that'd be like the whole,
For the
because
individual.
this is significant, right?
Yep. So for the individual who has personal property that is used in connection with their business, and that personal property is located in their residence, if that property had an original value of original cost of 20,000 or less, then they would be exempt from filing.
So obviously we had the governor's bill to eliminate the filing fee. But what this will do, and I think during that discussion, I know certainly from my perspective, I'm concerned about, I was sort of very sympathetic, particularly to people who might be a single proprietor of a business, on their own, they don't have any employees, they don't have anything, they're just running something out of their house. Low level, possibly not generating a lot of revenue, and yet they're still gonna have to pay the $300 every year. And I was wondering about that. This bill actually seems to kind of target that group. Would you say that's correct?
It's an inference. I would, if that's something that the committee wants to make sure happens, I would advise that that is added to things that SDAT cannot do.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you. So, if I might, so if I have a business out of my house, and I buy a desk and a chair and computers and everything else I need to buy, and obviously those things depreciate over the years, but it's a small business, and I am not inclined to, business hasn't expanded, and I'm not inclined to expand it because I don't need to. Would that qualify for this?
If the property that is located in your residence, that is used for business purposes, has an original cost of 20,000 or less, then it would not be charged property tax. You could have another location for the same business, different property. That could be. So it's not pertinent to the entirety of the business, but just whatever is located in the residence.
Okay, thank you.
So that part's interesting and good, certainly for small businesses, right? This second concept of the not having to pay the $300 at that size of a business is another part of the concept. I think if we're going to explore that more, we should probably go back to SDAT or whoever and work through that. Senator McCray.
Now, I was just trying to figure out, so if you have 20,000 or less property inside your personal property, do you like push a button on the internet that basically waives you of filing that form, or like how would that work?
So the bill has a phrase of if the person attests to fitting that criteria. So they would, they would be basically promising SDAT that they fit this criteria, subject to any other, auditing provisions that exist.
Got it.
I know when you re-up online now, they ask you things like your gross revenues and things like that, so they could easily put a line on there to attest that.
That's gonna help a lot of people. I was just trying to figure out, like, how do you know that you're waiving? And does it do it for a certain amount of years? Like if like for 5 years, like how do they?
No,
Assessed every year, right?
it's permanent. It's a permanent change and it has no limitation in the number of years.
But if all of a sudden you have $60,000 worth of equipment in your home, you're gonna have to report that and it'll change your status. Yes?
Yes, according to the law, it's only 20,000 or less.
Right.
Got it.
So it could change any year. What's that?
If you have a beauty shop in your home, you could deduct that equipment if you're a single operator. That hurts.
So it's under 20.
Yeah. Or why not up to 20?
Okay.
Same
Up,
thing.
I
up
didn't
to or
hear the
under
question.
Is
the difference of $1.
20 or under or up to 20 can be deducted?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but if somebody has 50,000, do you just take the 20 off?
No, it's not structured that way. So if you have 50,000, the way I read this is you would owe personal property tax on the entirety of 50,000.
Yeah, so if
Because
it
it's less than 20.
was
It has
more-
to be less than 20,
Got it.
yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's go back to them and ask them about
Yep.
that Senator Edwards.
Yeah, we don't have personal property tax, so this doesn't impact that in any manner, does it?
I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
my understanding is 4 categories, personal property tax. The only one we kept was utilities. We did away with everything else.
Is this a state personal tax?
This is what goes to the, it goes, go ahead.
There's no state personal property
It
tax.
goes to
The
the
rate's
county,
0,
yeah.
but. So this would impact the counties and municipalities. Correct. of
If they
course.
have it, that's
Yep.
right.
Yep.
I know we do.
We had it in Frederick City. I started phasing it out 35 years ago, and I don't think they ever finished.
I got a list.
There's a list.
The people who do not have it is Caroline, Dorchester, Frederick, Garrett, Kent, Queen Anne's, and Talbot.
So you wouldn't benefit from this.
Let me see if I printed that out.
Frederick does. I know, I'm joking with you.
I didn't print that out, but that's on SDAT's website. I mean, if I'm checking with SDAT, I mean, I can come back with the full list. I mean, I'd have to look at SDAT's website
Yep,
to answer your
we're
question
gonna bring
about
this one back.
municipalities.
We're gonna bring that one back. Getting info. Okay, 289.
Senate Bill 289 extends the termination date and then increases funding for the historic revitalization tax credit. The bill extends the program through fiscal 2031, and then the bill also expands the program by requiring the governor to provide, I believe it expands the amount he's required to provide to the trust fund that offsets the credits when they're claimed. It would now be 24 million for fiscal year 25 and 26, and then 36 million for fiscal years 27 through 31.
So let's figure out how to work this to get it to coincide with what we put in the fence this morning.
Okay.
Okay, we don't want to do that on the fly. We can wait. We'll figure it out and get it right.
So you want to make those out-year mandates the same as what was fenced?
Well, we need to just first worry about what happened the first year. And then we'll worry about after that. So let's bring it back. We'll bring it back. Okay? So let's get that right. So we get that moving. Sorry. 310.
So you do have a reprint on your desk for this bill. As a general reminder, this is the one about for locally declared emergencies, allowing some funds from the small minority women-owned business account to be used to assist with those emergencies. So beginning on page 4 of the reprint, as it initially came in, it was applicable to the entire state. Under the reprint, it would just be Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis when they declare a local state of emergency. At that point, then a fund manager can provide financial assistance through either a grant or to convert a grant or loan. It's capped at $50,000 in terms of assistance for single business or nonprofit organization. And of course, the department, being commerce, would have to approve those grants or the conversion of a grant to a loan. The reprint also has at the bottom of page 5 a report that sets up a work group. It lists the membership of the work group. And then on the back page, it sets up that MDEMs will be the staff of the work group, and they need to study and make recommendations about the efficacy and sustainability of existing emergency fund sources, and potentially establishing a state disaster relief fund. And that report would be due December 1st, 2022.
Senator Elfrist, does the fund manager from Anne Arundel, or represents the Anne Arundel area, support this?
They've asked for it, yes, Mr. Chair.
So this has become effectively a local bill?
It is a local bill with the exception of the work group, which was brought to us at MACO's request. All of our emergency managers across the counties meet, and they requested that we put this work group together to find a longer-term solution. And I appreciate the committee understanding that my district has had 2 tornadoes and a fourth highest flood on record in a single calendar year. And so we are preparing, unfortunately, for the next, and that's why doing it locally for now works, and then setting ourselves up for a statewide solution next session seems to be the right balance this year.
Okay, any comments? All right, is there a motion? All those in favor?
As amended?
Opposed? Okay. That's you. $314.
Senate Bill 314 is an income tax credit for the installation of mechanical insulation. The bill would create a credit of 30% of the allowable costs incurred to install mechanical insulation in a commercial or industrial building. MEA would administer the credit. The credit, as the bill is drafted, is capped at $5 million a year. The vice chair contacted me over the weekend and requested some amendments that would reduce the overall annual impact of the credit to $1 million a year and sunset the bill after 5 years.
That is correct.
Any comments? Was there a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. So, this is the first of several that the House already dealt with. Are these all exact matches? Do you know?
Not all of them.
Okay. so-
This one happens to be other than co-sponsorship, which you wouldn't care about. So, Senate Bill 316.
I'll tell you what, can you put all of them together on and we'll deal with them tomorrow? And
Okay.
can you have them all set and ready to match up to the House?
Correct. Only one of them's different.
Okay, well, let's just put them all together.
Okay.
We already did the bigger one, right, which was the work opportunity credit, tax credit. But how many, there are like 4 or 5 of these, right?
I believe the ones that I have are the sales and use tax exemptions,
Right.
which would be the diapers, the medical devices, and
Dental.
dental, the
Is
toothbrushes.
it just 3?
Those are the 3 that are mine, correct.
Is there another one that somebody else has?
I have the toothbrushes, yeah. Yes, the oral hydrate. $571. we will look and see whether, do you guys have
Off the top of my head, I cannot remember which the other two are.
right.
Let's just, as we go through here, whatever they are, let's get them in a space that they're consistent with what the House has done.
So just for my notes, that's 316 and 333, Matt?
It's 316, 571, and 488.
And there may be more.
There may be more.
Okay.
You finding them all over there, Senator? Okay, well, we'll identify them as we go along. 333.
Senate Bill 333 is a subtraction modification for business expenses related to people in the marijuana business. As you know, those business expenses are not currently deductible at the federal level as normal business expenses would be. This bill would try and make at least the business expenses deductible here at the state level, and at least try and equalize the treatment on their state income taxes.
So is this in the Feldman bill that's currently moving?
I don't believe it is. Philip, have you?
Let me check.
I know it was in the bigger bill. It was in the bigger bill, yeah, there's no question.
Matt, what's the code section?
Senate Bill 833, we're looking for Tax General 208. It's a submod, or 10308. No, according to the function paragraphs, it's not in Feldman's bill.
I'm not seeing it in the,
Okay.
There's no submod in
Did they,
Feldman's.
in that bill, the Feldman bill, now that you got it up there, did they, does that charge, or does that specify the delineation of whatever revenues come in? And are they taking revenues in on this bill?
Are they taking revenues on
That bill?
this bill?
Yeah.
Philip, do you know?
I'm not seeing anything in the Feldman bill.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason, it certainly was on the big bill that we were all looking at. But I'm trying to see, I mean, this is gonna be important for us to figure out, because I think this is coming to the floor, I think, this week. And what I'm, in the back of my head, what I'm thinking about right now are a number of the requests for different things. For instance, this bill, and whether or not it should be included in that bill. And also, some individuals who have suggested some funding sources, which we talked about, a couple of us, as we were trying to think about this coming into session. And there are some others, like, and interestingly enough, because the fund manager issue came up just a minute ago, they're interested in having some portion from whatever revenues are generated. But this bill, I think, pared down now, doesn't do nearly what was set up last year.
So a quick look at Senator Feldman's bill, and there, in the fiscal note, there's a a statement regarding funding for expungements and related functions. The Office of Social Equity must allocate funds from the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund to cover the cost to OPD, state's attorney's offices, and the courts as part of administering Title 23 of the Health General article.
Where,
Matt, which one are you, there's,
I'm looking at Senate Bill 833.
oh, okay.
where's the money coming in from? Is there a tax, I mean, it doesn't go that far, right? Because they don't even know, this bill doesn't go so far as to even do licensing, correct?
It says general special fund revenues increased significantly in fiscal 23, 24, and 26 from dual license fees. And then in 24, it says that special funds are going to increase from taxes and other licensing fees and some civil penalties.
Senator Roosevelt?
I think you asked my question. By funding, you meant where's revenue coming from, not where it's going. And that's
Both.
what-
I knew where it was happening before.
Right, I
in
understand.
the previous bill, and it was pretty well delineated, but there was still some discussion we would need to have about that.
Uh-huh.
But if there's no revenue coming in,
Right.
there's no going out. And since they haven't determined the licensing arrangements from what I believe in this bill, if I'm understanding what's going on right now, there wouldn't be money to spend.
I've studiously avoided trying to learn about this issue and achieved it pretty much.
Yeah.
But what does the bill do if it doesn't involve raising any money?
I think it does, as Matt was starting to lay out, I think it does deal with some of the expungement issues.
Yes, it deals with some of the expungement issues, and it does deal with some of the tax issues here. The bill specifies that a sale or transfer of cannabis from a cannabis establishment licensed under the bill to a consumer is subject to a 10% excise tax
Oh.
starting on April 1st, 2026, 15% starting, 15% ramping up to 20%.
Well, if that's the case, I mean, look, I support Senator Young's bill. I think it's the right thing to do. And I have for a couple of years now. I've been trying to figure out how to get this to work. My gut always was, as revenues come in, it helps then pay for the $6 million cost. And so I like the idea of it being in the bill that's generating money.
Tie it together.
Yeah. Senator Young.
Well, whatever. I kept this very straightforward. It's the only business in the state that cannot deduct their business expenses. So I wasn't trying to complicate it with anything else, just to put them on the same level ground that every other business in the state is in. And,
I think the logic of it is, I think, pretty strong along those lines. But if we can pay for it at the same time that,
well, I mean, that, you can combine them, or that can be done in a separate bill. But I just was trying to create them on a level field, and if we can find a way to make up the 6 million.
yeah,
It's 6 million that I don't think we should have ever been collecting in the first place,
right.
but,
Can we ask Matt,
it's not illegal marijuana.
whoever, to have conversations with finance
Okay.
and see
Yeah.
if we can get that included in there?
Yeah, this doesn't affect federal. There are 8 states that have done this, separated from the federal and given the tax, same taxes to this as everything else.
Do you have another question?
I'm just saying, we could also just pass his bill contingent on the other bill passing.
We could. Let's have a conversation, but, I mean, yeah.
Oh, and as Philip just pointed out to me, and are you handling 833?
You are this year,
Okay. B&T will have to vote on
Yeah.
the finance bill.
I would think so.
we would.
We can just add it in then.
We can add it in then,
Okay, that's a good point.
or suggest they include
Yeah,
it.
it makes
when
it nice and easy now.
Thank you, Philip.
Very good. All right. 346, I think, is probably work group.
Correct.
Okay, this 403, really, I think we're gonna, we're gonna hold, and we're gonna hold in the in particular, considering we're gonna have, guys, we're gonna hold 403 in particular in the context of, what we were just discussing earlier about the possibility of getting people with the smaller, very small businesses, the ability to not have to pay the fee. Clearly, we're holding the next one.
Yes.
Still goes on. The beat goes on. Not giving up on that. Let's hold the next one. Okay, this one we need to deal with. 463. Who's got this?
This one is my bill. This one deals with the WMATA funding mandate, the formulas that were put in place a couple years ago, last year maybe. And this would take one of the mandates and relieve it of the 3% escalator that was gonna be applied to it. And
All right,
then.
can you talk that through?
So there's a 3%.
Yeah, you can.
So there was an amount that was mandated for fiscal 19.
All right, that was like the 167.
There's another 167. Yes, that's the 167. And there's a 3% escalator on it that goes up every year.
Right.
This bill would say whatever the mandate is for 22, that's gonna be the mandate for this pot of money going forward. Then we drop down to subsection G, where there is another one, this is the 167 mandate in subsection G. This puts that 167 in place for fiscal year 25, or fiscal year 24. Then for fiscal year 25 and every fiscal year after that, that amount is gonna then be increased by 3%. Right, so it's swapping the 3% escalator in subsection F for the 3% escalator in subsection G.
Good thought.
Yep. I,
Okay, sorry about that. Two things accomplished in one swift move.
That's great.
Yes, all right. So, Matt, do you want to do it, or do you want me to try to do it?
Sure, I can do it. There's-
Okay.
There were two bases here. There was a 143 and 167. The 3% escalator was on the wrong one, the one that doesn't apply now. There is now going to be the 3% escalator is going to be on the $167 million grant that's going to WMATA. But that 3% escalator is only going to kick in once DC and Virginia both pass the same law.
Right,
So moved.
okay. You good, Mr. Chairman? Okay. Yes, 463. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. 3, 4. 4 not opposed. Okay, very good.
I guess I never didn't want to be a co-sponsor either.
My concern is, if the funding stays stagnant or even goes down, they're automatically gonna get a 3% increase, which impacts a lot of other things in the state. That's the reason I'd vote against it.
So if I'm so if I'm understanding this, it had a base, right? The base used to be 143. Now the base is 167, which we changed a couple years ago. When it was 143, it had an escalator clause in it, for 3%. We should have had that changed over to the 167 when we changed the base. We're really just keeping the same escalator, just with the new base. And I understand if you don't like it, that's fine. I appreciate it, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Senator Zucker?
And also, it kicks in only if the other jurisdictions have skin in the game.
Of course, right. Same rules as last time. Anytime we do something, everybody's got to do the same thing. Okay? All right, so we voted that. Do you want to do that, Senator Zucker?
When will it be on the floor?
Couple days?
Yeah, we can report tomorrow.
Well, not tomorrow. Well, when you say report, then
Report
then it
tomorrow
goes.
for Wednesday.
For Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay, let's do this quickly while Senator Quarterman's out of the room. 474.
Okay, you all do have a reprint on your desk for this one for a couple of minor adjustments in it. It primarily does two things. First of all, it creates a board for the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Program. Secondly, so that you can see the membership of the board on page 3 of the bill. On page 4 of the bill, creates a special fund, Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Fund, the purpose of which is to provide grants or loans for either capital infrastructure or business development. If it's a capital infrastructure project, then the requirements of that is that it needs to be linked to economic development in the area, and it requires a 20% match from the locality that is applying for that grant. In terms of business development, those projects would have to promote downtown revitalization or small business, tourism, and that would require a 10% match from the locality that requests it. And then other projects, the fund can be used for other projects as approved by the board. The board is required to develop criteria to ensure jobs, business growth, wage increases, new revenues, and the wards would be reclaimable if there's no significant progress in those criteria. There's a mandate for $20 million for each of fiscal '23 through 2027. And there was finally a reporting requirement that talks about basically the efficacy of the program. So some of the amendments in the reprint just change the years in which for the mandate. And then lastly, on the last page, there's a verbal change that I'll need to make here too. In terms of the effective date, in order to correspond with the actions taken on the fencing list that you guys did this morning, it would be better if this bill had an effective date of June 1 as opposed to July 1, and then it does sunset after 5 years.
So, we fenced $20 million. The governor included in a supplemental $10 million that isn't quite in the same posture. Senator, is there a mechanism to try to get that in the same posture?
I refer to my colleague. I'm not an expert. I don't know how you would do that, but I guess there's always a way of doing it.
Well, we could do budget language, I suppose, on the supplemental that would require it be used for a certain purpose.
I think you're absolutely correct there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That would occur later. We haven't dealt with the supplementals yet. So we have time to do that. Is that correct? Staff?
Yeah, depends on what you mean by we can do it later. It's like, oh,
Maybe
I mean-
in conference.
okay. Yep.
So, I can say that it's easy to be fully in support of all the language in this. And the question is really gonna be about creating the mandate, from my perspective. And we might have to take that a little slower, but maybe we get there. Senator Young?
You jumped onto my first question as to whether this was complimentary or in lieu of, or whatever, the governor's bill. But secondly, I'm not going to interfere with this, but just for the future, for everybody to think about, I kind of have an objection because of where I'm from. We're called Western Maryland, but we're never included in the Western Maryland bills, and we're never included in the metropolitan bills. I told Senator Rosenpep I wrote an article once called "Where's Frederick?" because we're in the Washington Metro, we're same distance from Baltimore, we're called Western Maryland, but we never get considered in any of them. We always have to fight for it separately. And I would just like to see us be part of something when we consider money in the future.
Understood.
I say that not for Frederick City because we don't need this, but we have areas of Frederick County that do.
Okay. So clearly, I mean, there's no question that the Western Maryland that is out there that the senators represent in Garrett and beyond are in need of some assistance. There's no question about it. We've experienced too many hits economically. People have thoughts on this? It's a big mandate. Fundamentally, do you agree with the construct of the organization? At this point, if we get everything lined up correctly with the supplemental, they'll have $30 million. Senator Rosenpep?
Yeah, I have a question because I haven't followed it that closely. Within the counties that are included, big picture, what are the limitations of how the money can be spent? Are there geographic restrictions within the counties, or are there buckets? Just big picture.
Well, if you are in one of the three counties, you have a project that meets the criteria in this bill, you would apply, and the local board that's established, which is established equally, 11 people, 3 from each county in certain categories, 1 from Maryland Municipal League and 1 from the Department of Commerce. They would make the decision whether your project got funded or not.
And give me just generically, what kind of project is to fund as opposed to a project that wouldn't be funded? What's the basic conceptual criteria?
Well, I can give you ones that be funded. I don't know about the ones that couldn't be funded, but if the county needed a new business park or industrial park, you could apply to get money to buy it. You could apply to get money to put infrastructure into it, those kind of things. You need a road through business park or you can apply to get that.
It's flexible economic development money,
Yes.
basically.
But it's approved by this board,
Yes.
who's closest to the situation and knows whether it's viable
Sure,
or
no, I
not.
understand, I got you.
Then
And
you
then-
have to give a thorough report every year on all the projects they've approved, how many people they keep or they get, create, increase, whatever.
So it's somewhat analogous to Bernie in the Baltimore area and somewhat analogous to the thing we have in
I
the
think similar,
Washington area.
but a little bit different, but similar to Bernie and Ned.
Gotcha, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm just speaking personally, I mean, I do sort of agree with Senator Young that Frederick ought to be someplace for the purpose of this kind of activity. And obviously Frederick is doing economically a lot better than a lot of other places in general, but there gotta be areas in Frederick where this sort of thing would make sense, so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Well, if I might, Mr. Chairman, we passed a bill to set this up, and the bill was passed based on the 3 western Maryland counties. 2 of the 3 anywhere, the 4 poorest in the state of Maryland. I mean, I can go over a whole lot of things, why we need a little extra help. I don't think we're asking for anything out of order here. Washington's doing a little better, but they're in like the bottom 7 of a lot of things in the state. And it's a pilot, it's classified a pilot, so if this works, which we think it will, other parts of the state could set up a similar scenario of how to do it.
Senator Corrigan?
Yes, thank you. And I think just basically to echo some of the thoughts of the senior senator from Western Maryland and back to Senator Young's point, and even to your point, Mr. Chairman, it's really about trying to reinvent and recreate the economies in the farther portions of Western Maryland. I understand what you're saying, Senator Young, and quite frankly, I would say Hagerstown has been fortunate with the 70-81 corridor. We've been doing a little bit better than the western portion of Washington County, but it's really trying to increase those economies in the western portion of Washington County, where Senator Edwards represents, along again with Allegheny and Garrett, based on the things he said of what happened. There's a lot of, things that have happened over the years to those economies, and we just got to figure out a way to re-energize them and basically recreate them in a way that's productive for the whole state. So that's the, the crux behind it, so to speak. So.
Okay. I'm gonna hold this one day, and we'll resolve it tomorrow. Okay? $480.
Okay, Senate Bill 480, you also have a reprint on your desk for some rewording that I just wanted to put in front of you, if it matches the intent to clarify some things.
Before you say any more, can I just ask, this is one of the ones that I think is in the fenced project, isn't it?
I think so, I don't have that list in front of me.
Okay.
I thought it was.
I think it is. 480, yes, it is.
Okay, great.
So go ahead, what were you recommending in terms of changes?
Well, want me to remind everyone what it is?
Oh, please, yes.
Okay, so it sets up 2 different grant programs. The first one is a stabilization grant program. Those are for childcare facilities that are in danger of closing in the next 12 months. This actually hits on the point that I wanted to raise for you. So on the first page of the reprint, I had mentioned that sometimes in code, when we use referential timing, like next 12 months, is that interpreted to be next from the time that the bill is enacted, or what happens 5 years from now? So I think, and perhaps the sponsor can confirm this, that I was suggesting here in danger of closing due to financial hardships in the 12 months following the application for financial support, so they're kind of always looking forward 12 months. So then for those grants, the bill then does, MSD has to develop criteria, processes, and award amounts. The award amounts can be anywhere from 1,000 to 35,000 per individual. And then the second program that it establishes is an expansion grant program. This would provide grants to the providers to train their staff, to do background checks, get supplies, et cetera. Here, again, MSD would develop criteria and procedures, and these awards would be either between 3,000 or 50,000 for an individual awardee. And then that indeed completes the bill. Yep. One little detail is recipient of an award under each of these programs can't also receive the other award, so it's one or the other for recipient.
I'm sorry, I'm reading through your amendment change. I'm just trying to grasp that 12-month issue. In danger of closing in the next 12 months. Or in danger of closing due to the financial, in the 12 months following the application for financial support.
So this program is permanent. So I'm just thinking, if I'm reading this statute 5 years from now, what does in the next 12 months mean?
No, I completely agree with that part of it. I'm trying to figure out if it then, so you have to apply for it in the 12 months following the application.
So
You have to know to apply for it before,
No, I would apply for it under the, I mean, this was my thinking. When I apply for it, as a business owner, I have to realize that my business is in danger sometime in the next 12 months. Like, I don't have enough capital to move forward. I fear that I might be closing within a year.
okay. Okay, thoughts, anyone? It's in the fence. 3.2.
So it's actually not a mandate. Just because there's no, the bill technically is not a mandate, even though the fiscal note says so. I think that's just whether fiscal note says it's a mandate or not tracks back to like a little button we have to click when we're drafting it. But, when you read it, the awards can range anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500. It can, to 35,000, sorry. There's no, it doesn't say, it just says that the governor shall include an appropriation to the program. There's no dollar value to that, so we don't know how many actual awards would be made. But under certain assumptions, the fiscal note does identify 3.2 million annually in the first few years and then 2 million thereafter.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, the childcare industry is in a world of trouble. There's been a whole bunch of federal money that I'm sure Senator King knows no more about than I do. I'm not clear where that all stands in terms of, has that all been spent? Is that still all, money going through 2024? I'm just wondering how this would fit in with that.
I'm just wondering if we ought to be looking at all of these childcare bills together rather than one at a time.
I agree with
I think it's a good plan, just like the other things. Yep, absolutely. No.
A play group.
A play group.
Now, clearly, since we already all voted for this defense, we all support these.
Yes,
So,
yes,
but
absolutely, but
we
I
should
think we need to look
probably
at
put
them
them
all.
all together. What's the,
some
they
of-
should all be on this, in here, right?
Some of the bills were
let me
in the
see.
leadership package.
No, there's something that just came out of rules that you haven't heard yet, 919. Then you do also have, I don't know if it's on this list, there's an 806.
No, the ones that we included in the fence were 480, 506, 520.
506 is on this list.
Yep,
I still have one more being heard tomorrow.
and 9.
520 must be out of another committee. We might be
I
secondary.
have 919 being heard tomorrow.
Okay.
Senate Bill 520?
What's that?
What was that third bill that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman?
920?
920, thank you.
I think that's still on hold.
Yeah, that's the one that we're hearing tomorrow.
Okay.
Uh,
All right,
actually-
so,
Actually, EHE is hearing that tomorrow. That bill went to EHE.
Okay.
Thank you.
506, 480, and 920. We will
Yeah.
take up later this week.
Well, Senate Bill 920, budget and tax does not have any assignment of that. That is purely EHE.
But I have 919.
Correct.
Yeah, so we need to see what 919 is.
It's a good bill.
They always are from you, Senator. Yes.
So, just a question. So what time frame are we talking about? So with COVID, we know a lot of businesses had to challenge daycare, childcare. So we're talking about projecting 12 months ahead of time that I haven't.
I mean, all I can say is the bill takes effect July 1, 2022, and does not sunset.
Does not sunset. Thank you.
We really do have, and there are a couple more childcare bills. 886. 806. Senator King, you found every angle that you possibly could.
For the kids, for the kids.
It's for the children, yes.
Maybe Senator King can just figure this out and get back to us.
I can do my own work.
Exactly.
Well, they are in the possession of the committee now.
I understand. Just trying to be helpful.
All right, well, we'll put them all together.
Can I make a suggestion to you?
Yes.
We kind of regroup and I'll kind of come back to you with
That'd be
a
good.
recommendation. Would that
That'd
help
be
you?
good. That would be good. And clearly the ones that we included in the fence, we want to make sure that those move. Okay, good. All right. Let's go to procurement, because that's really fun. Senator Griffith?
Quick intro or fill it?
No, I'm kidding. I mean, who's got that bill?
Me and Philip.
Philip, okay, Philip.
Sure, I will. Just say, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, this is the bill that we heard as a result of the very comprehensive report that DLS conducted, an evaluation of MBE. They came in with that beautifully bound booklet that had a number of recommendations. This bill was introduced based on that list of recommendations that were part of DLS's evaluation of our MBE program. Although the bill didn't include all of the recommendations from the report, it was cross-filed in the House, and so I think Philip has an update on the status of that bill and some amendments that the House adopted.
Correct. You should all have a reprint on your desks for Senate Bill 487. The amendments on this conform the bill to the cross-file House Bill 389, which is now recently in the possession of B&T. The bill, as Senator Griffith said, you know, it's incorporating the statutory recommendations from the DLS study. Some of the main features that it's establishing an MBE ombudsman within the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs. It's number of provisions expanding accountability and transparency requirements for the program. And then it's also codifying an existing set-aside program for small businesses. With the amendments, I'll just go through quickly and hit some of the big notes. One of the recommendations in the bill as introduced was a change to the definition of responsible bidder or offerer, having a reference to whether or not that entity consistently or persistently fails to meet its MBE goals in the contract. That provision is struck. The bill replaces elsewhere with a new process by which there can be a referral to the Attorney General's office based on, within existing procurement law, there are requirements that you could be at risk for debarment if you're consistently not meeting your contract provisions. And so it's establishing a process that would be adopted by regulation whereby an entity, prime contractor, could be referred for review of whether or not they should be debarred for consistently failing to meet their MBE goals in their contracts. The bill adds a number of additional information reporting for MBEs for solicitations for bids and offers. That's on page 3 and 4. There was a provision in the bill that established a program whereby MBEs that graduate because they get they grow outsized for the MBE requirements to stay on and hold that MBE certification in a mentorship capacity. That is stricken from the bill. There are definitions for industry types, which will be incorporated into the reporting requirements. As introduced on page 5, there was a requirement that the industry types be included in the goals, but that's being stricken from the bill, and you have the reporting requirements by those industry types. There was also in the bill a repeal of a provision that provided for liquidated damages when contractors fail to comply with the MBE programs. The bill retains that provision, but also adds study language in the bill to get a report on the use of liquidated damages, and also requires the ombudsman to provide training to procurement officers on the use of liquidated damages. On page 11, you have some more conforming language to the MBE participation, and instead of requiring reporting on each contractor and minority business, it's each contractor and all subcontractors. So it's a little more expansive in terms of the information that's going to be reported. And then the other, on page 12, you'll see the language regarding the new process for the referral for failing to meet the MBE goals by contractors. And then another significant change starting on page 13. This is not amended, this is in the bill as introduced. You have codification of the set aside for small businesses for procurements between 50,000 and 500,000. And then on the bottom of page 13, going forward for the next 3 pages, it expands the provisions related to payments for subcontractors to be any procurement instead of just construction, which is current law. And then in the back of the bill, you have a number, starting on page 17, you have the creation of the ombudsman program. And then you have, at the end of the bill, an uncodified language, report from the ombudsman on the ombudsman's activity and staffing needs, the liquidated damages study report, and then there's an additional reporting requirement for DLS to do a follow-up study to the report that was released this fall, or this few months ago. And I believe the 2 agencies are comfortable with the bill as amended.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say there was a letter of information. I had the opportunity to talk with MDOT, and I understand MDOT and DGS worked with the House on their amendments, and so they have been a part of the process, engaged, and had their concerns addressed. It was Governor's Office on Small Minority Women-Owned Business, I think.
Sorry.
So, yeah, so we've reached out to them, and believe they're comfortable with the bill as amended, so I would move favorable on the amendments in the bill.
You do, but I don't think we've said it yet. Oh, sorry. Just got it recently. Just got it recently. That one, I think, is also part of one of the work groups.
But it's very expensive. The TOD one?
So one of the reason it's expensive is because within the bill, it also extended the More Jobs for Marylanders for 3 years. So those costs are embedded in the fiscal note. So because you already passed the More Jobs for Marylanders bill, you could strike that provision from this bill and it would reduce the fiscal note for this bill.
By how much, do you know?
I can talk to the fiscal note writer and clarify. I don't think it would be very much, but I will finalize that if that's of interest.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to find out.
Okay. You know, I mean, the fiscal note right now talks about $500,000 in like administrative, but also the larger cost is keeping, as of July 1 of every year, making sure that the fund that's created here has a $10 million balance. So, you know, that's going to be the large piece that remains. But that's less than the 24 million that's established in the fiscal note. But I will get further information.
Okay,
I got a question on this one.
please.
I tried reading, and I still don't quite understand what the bill does. Forget the More Jobs for Maryland, but what's the essence of how the money flows?
Okay. Sorry, my glasses are fogging up. Let me just find where that is. So it's a revolving loan fund. So the fund would be used, so in terms of the flow of the money, every July 1, there would need to be, make sure that there's 10 million in
Right,
it.
that I got.
Right, so once that fund is capitalized with $10 million, then the uses are to design plans. This is on page 10 of the bill, if you're following along, for designing plans to make sure that they meet equity goals established by transportation, to do public infrastructure improvements within a transit-oriented development, some gap funding, so if projects are coming in higher than expected. So it's financial assistance for those purposes within.
So it's essentially
transit.
miscellaneous grant funding for transit-oriented development, that's the way to think about it?
Sure, yeah, but specific to, you know, equity goals, public infrastructure, but yes.
And who would decide?
The department, so that's transportation.
Department of Transportation would decide who would get a grant
I believe that's transportation.
in
Hold on.
response to proposals, say, we need a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there to do a particular transit-oriented development project.
Yes, I'm just verifying that department in this case, because there's some refers to transportation as opposed to commerce. Yeah, I mean, transportation trust fund bonds.
And the money comes from the trust fund?
No, it can. The money comes from many different sources, either appropriated in state budget, money made available from other governmental sources, from like community development block grants, transportation trust fund. If there are ground rents within the area, proceeds can go there. And then the rest is just, you know, the payments, interest, any revolving loans go back into the fund.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, given that we're gonna hold it to see what happens if you take out the more just for Maryland, I'd like to talk to Senator Augustine about it before we come back to this.
Sure,
Thank you.
please do. Okay. I skipped over one earlier that I didn't really mean to. Is 417 out of,
Not out of pensions yet?
oh, it's not out of pensions. Okay, then. I didn't really skip over it then. I knew what I was doing all along. Okay, hold the next one. Property tax annual assessment, agricultural use assessment. Didn't we do that already?
Yeah, sorry, that one was already voted.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Okay, then that Senator Clausman, 571 is is one of the ones that's in the package, so we'll put those together for later in the week. All right? Okay, this was the interesting one. Senator Young really opened my eyes to this one. But what are we doing?
Senate Bill 574? Senate Bill 574 requires that at least 500,000 be distributed to the, from the Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Fund to the nonprofit entity that's designated to establish, maintain, and operate the organ donor registry, and then also extends the termination date of the program. You do have, well, actually, first in response to, I think, the questions last time we were discussing this, Estates and Trusts, Article 4, or Title 4, Subtitle 5, is the Maryland Revised Uniform Anatomical Gift Act that governs donations in the state. With respect to the bill, there was a reprint on your desk. There was kind of a quirk in the funding mechanics going on. So the bill,
Okay, well, before we get into that, I mean, I don't think we're gonna go anywhere on this until we figure out, and I think you started on that, explaining where the authority comes from, but what is the authority? Who has the authority? Who can say, we're gonna receive this donation? Who can say that maybe we're gonna go talk to the family and change their minds about it? I mean,
right, so
what's going on here?
the federal government designates the organ procurement organizations, and so there's two of those in Maryland. One covers the DC metropolitan area, there's 3 counties, and then the other one covers the remainder of the state. This entity in this bill does the educational and registry operation that both of those organ procurement organizations interact with. According to,
So these aren't the actual procurement.
no, these are not the actual entities that do the organ procurement and handling the transplant.
Okay,
According to the Education Service website, the designation of being a registered donor is recognized in Maryland as a legally binding decision. I think what may happen sometimes is if there's no donor registration, then they'll go to the family to make a determination. And all of this is contingent on viable organs being available and able to be used in a transplant.
okay. So someone passes away. On their license, they have that they are an organ donor. There's the educational group, which we're talking about here, and the procurement group.
Right,
There's 2 procurement groups that cover the state.
right.
So in that short time frame, when I presume decisions have to be made,
Right.
who makes the decision that it's viable and it should be transferred?
I believe that decision is the organ procurement organization.
Okay? Now, why would the second group that does education, I mean, we want to encourage more people.
Educational group also does the donor registry.
The donor registry,
So
so
that-
when you sign up on your license, is that the registry, or is it something else beyond that?
Their website also has a process by which you can register with them.
When you don't have a license, or you don't necessarily want to put it on your license?
Correct.
Okay. So their job is to get more people to register, presumably either on their website or in the,
Correct.
on your license. How is it then that in the procurement process, they at times intervene and ask the family members what their desires are?
I mean, I can't speak to the variations of how it works, but I know that I've been informed that the organ procurement organization works with the donor registry organization, the educational entity that's in the bill. So I think they'll check with them to see if there is a registry or a registration. And then after that, there's I think a succession of family members set out in statute that are authorized to help and assist in that decision.
So I thought one of the first things you said was that the decision to be on the registry, I presume whether it's on their website or on your license, is legally binding.
Correct.
And so I'm missing the part where they go from legally binding to have someone else overriding the decision. Do you have some sense of?
The only thing, I don't know how that works out. I mean, I imagine that a lot of these, the timeline is
I mean, I can
very,
understand the sensitivity in dealing with family and the whole
Right.
bit, you get all that.
Right.
But at the same token, if in fact it is legally binding, I don't quite understand.
I believe, my understanding, which is limited in this area, I think the statute is JPR jurisdiction, is that if they know of a registration or designation on the license, that is legally binding. I imagine there's instances when that's not readily ascertainable, but there are family present.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, when it's unclear whether
Right.
somebody's actually on a registry or
Right.
have it on their license.
There's also provisions, looking, at the statute, there are also provisions about, there are options to rescind donation elections and things like that. So, to the extent there's information indicating that may be the case, there may be deferral to that as the process is going on, but I can't speak to each instance. Like, just generally speaking, the designation is supposed to be accepted. I imagine there's a component of, to the extent that knowledge is readily available.
Senator Young?
I've had organ donor bills in a couple different years, and they make it real clear that they check with family and do not proceed if the family objects. I mean, they made it real clear that's what happens. And that's what I have objected to each time.
Yeah. Senator Rosenthal?
I thought they essentially said that at the hearing. That's my recollection.
They did say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
didn't,
don't think there's controversy about that.
well, I didn't get the impression that they were asking,
Excuse me?
I didn't get the
exciting.
impression necessarily they were going to the family every time, but maybe I misunderstood that.
I don't know.
They indicated that they go to the family every time they can.
You know what, I appreciate all the research you've done so far. Let's ask for Attorney General opinion. I'm curious about
Yeah,
this.
no, absolutely.
This is just,
Yeah.
this is kind of ridiculous on some level. And if in fact it is the law, And if it's not, that's fine too. And if we want a law that allows for a combined decision between what somebody's wishes were and and involving the family, that's another story. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I just don't understand. And I think we need to understand before we pass this bill.
Okay. Okay.
This is gonna be our last one for today. 636.
636 requires the Department of Health to develop a plan to reduce the wait list for 8 specified waiver programs by 50% beginning in fiscal 2024. You have some amendments from the sponsor in a reprint on your desk. They're making additional clarifications regarding the registry for the autism waiver, and then also include requirements in the development of the plans for an assessment of whether each waiver program needs to recruit and retain additional providers. And it's the community pathways waiver, community supports waiver, family supports waiver, brain injury waiver, home and community-based options waiver, medical daycare services waiver, and the model waiver for medically fragile children, and then also the autism waiver. So the bill is requiring MDH to develop plans to reduce the wait list for each of those by half, some of which are, the wait list is
But at some
fairly
point,
considerable.
it kicks in and actually requires them to start doing that too.
The cost associated would be the implementation of whatever plan they develop.
Right. Well, we clearly came up with a plan in the fence about what we think should occur with regard to autism. But not the whole model. Senator, what do you think about how we should move forward?
Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, let me say thank you for even the fact that we're moving forward, right? I mean, I think that's just, in itself, just a really memorable and, important component. My sense is that, we should have a vehicle, and this could be the vehicle. Right now, there's no funding mandate in this until we figure out the lay of the land for FY '24. So my understanding is right now, it is just coming up with, this bill would be a vehicle for coming up with a plan in FY '24, which, is that right, Philip? Is that how you would?
Yes.
Okay, so I think as it is, this bill is good to go. We also have a piece of fenced, I think we fenced something like $40 million in fenced money, of which right now it's dedicated to significantly reducing the autism waiting list. And then there's money that would be in the dedicated purpose account that they'd be able to draw from to reduce the waiting list. I think we ought to, I think that's a good start. We ought to think about maybe in the future, even this session, just including the other waiver programs into that. But I think for the purpose of this, I feel good on where it is, since there's a funding hope and there's a funding path, but there's no current funding mandate until we work it out in FY '24. But I think this fully includes, Mr. Chairman, the Senate of Maryland's intent to start taking this seriously, as we have with the providers, and start moving forward to a path where people don't have to wait.
So I noticed that in the fiscal note, it says, this bill may establish a mandated appropriation in '24. This bill increases the cost of an entitlement program beginning. This bill increases the cost of an entitlement program beginning in 2024. how can we be creating the potential of I mean, I understand the potential of a mandate in '24.
Right.
But how can you have a mandate when you don't have a dollar amount associated with it?
Right, I think the note is pointing out that, the implementation of whatever plan will likely have an increased cost, and being an entitlement program, there'll be a cost associated with that. What that is not
I
determined.
mean, there'd be
and-
no reflected number in out years, it just can't.
No, they have illustrated,
So, I mean,
calculations, but that's not
Yeah, I don't see
part
how
of
you
the
could
official
even call it a
plan.
mandate.
Right.
It's interesting language choice.
Yeah, mandate might not be the appropriate term, maybe,
Okay?
Really good bill anyway.
at least in terms
Oh,
of
it's
a defined amount.
terrific. I mean, this is, you know, I just heard Senator Ecker whisper under her, and how this has been, should have been happening years ago. Yep. Yep.
I guess I would have two requests to the committee. I would ask my colleagues to join me on this bill if they feel so inclined, as co-sponsors who aren't already on it. And then once that happens, I'd like to move that as amended and then move favorable on the bill.
Yep.
I just want to congratulate Senator Zucker on this bill. It's kind of it's landmark legislation as far as our kids go. So, it should have happened a long time ago, but you have been a good leader on this. And I would like to be a co-sponsor.
Okay. Who wants to be a co-sponsor? Hands up.
Is that all B&T?
I already am, so.
Yeah, Gazoni, Griffith, and Zucker are already on.
All right, everybody else. All right, all those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
That's, finance is secondary on that, so we'll get it over to them.
Oh, okay. I was talking about tomorrow. Okay, that is gonna conclude our voting session for today. What do we have up for tomorrow? Erica, do you have the schedule?
So, yeah, you're hearing a few bills, like 5, I think, at 1 o'clock, and then the capital subcommittee meets for the final numerous general obligation bond budget hearings.
Okay.
At 2, yes, thank you.
So we just have a couple bills tomorrow?
Yep.
Gas tax, we have the gas tax tomorrow. We hope to get that, can we figure out a way to make that happen so that it's passes third reader on Thursday? Or even Wednesday, if we can.
I think
Sure.
that's a question for higher up.
Okay. I think the House is trying to aim for Thursday. Have it done. We had that conversation with them.
Do we have a lot of names for exec noms today?
Senator Young? Do we have a lot going at exec noms tonight?
Probably be an hour and a half. It depends. Maybe a little less. It won't be longer than an hour and a half.
Great.
What's that? I can't imagine there's a lot of witnesses. We've got that, and then, what did you say right after that? We
Capital GO hearings
at 2.
at 2.
And I shrunk the list.
Yeah, it did shrink.
And how long do you think that's gonna take?
No more than a half hour, no more than.
Oh. Okay.
And you know, I'm being cautious, so maybe 20 minutes.
Oh,
I'm gonna try to bang it out quickly.
okay. So why don't we try to vote again at 2:30
Okay.
tomorrow? So, 1 o'clock hearing, 2 o'clock capital, 2:30 voting.
And please don't get rid of your reprints. Is there any room for the tax committee to meet?
If I leave them sit here on the desk, nobody take them, can I just leave them sitting right here?
Right now.
Okay,
I don't want that.
okay.
Keep those, so I'll use them all.
All right, that's good, there's the plan.